This week on CCTU, we're taking a look at the emerging case and pathways for hydrogen as part of the complementary system we need to achieve zero emissions everywhere.
Are you interested in appearing in a future episode of CCTU? Well, email us at cctu@calstart.org and let us know how you can help us share the latest on industry trends, tools, and updates.
Well, hello again and welcome back. Great to have you with us for this October 2nd edition of CCTU, the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. Hard to believe it's October already, isn't it? I'm Bill Van Amberg, and with my colleague, Alicia Gildy, we're your hosts. Alex Goddess is running our webcast today. Casey Okazaka is producing and monitoring chat and questions for us. So please, as you have questions, do put those into the chat column or the question bar. Whitley Porter is managing our marketing and our look and feel. Our goal, as always, is to keep you more connected than ever in these times of rapid change, the dislocation we're all facing, and to give you 30 minutes away from the distractions of the day if we can, to focus on the trends and progress that are driving forward clean commercial transportation. But we do have to take a bit of a pause here. And Alicia, last night, a bit of sobering news that I think it's worth reflecting on.
That's right, Bill. And hello, everyone. Yes, we heard troubling news. As you may have heard, both the president and the first lady have been tested positive for COVID-19. And this is, certainly shocking news as we want to make sure that they are safe. But I think it's also a real important reminder that we really do take care of ourselves and take care of each other and take every precaution that we can to stay safe and to stay healthy.
Such a good point. And we do, of course, wish them well. And all of us need to redouble our efforts. We're not out of the woods on this yet by any means. Well, our topics today, at least, definitely move us forward. I'm really excited about this great rundown we have, Alicia.
Oh, Bill, I am super excited. We have a wonderful lineup of guests today and talking about a really important topic. As we're pursuing the path of a zero emission future for the medium and heavy duty space, really need to look at the complementary path of both electric charging and hydrogen refueling as we're really exploring opportunities to deploy technologies that are going to be best depending on the vocation. And we're going to start off our conversation today with Kim Okafor with Trillium, which is a Love Travel Stops company, as well as with Tim Sasseen with Ballard, who are going to share with us where we see some important opportunities and what technologies and applications make the most sense for hydrogen refueling and fuel cell technology.
We'll also get a nice feedback from a user's perspective. From AC Transit has been one of the leaders, not just in fuel cells, but also in putting in complementary battery electric technology buses. Mika Miyasato from AC Transit will be joining us and talking about that. So we've got a good rundown of people. But let's start out, as we always do, with a sense of the pulse of the people who are attending today.
That's right. Well, and everyone, we would like to hear from you. In what application will hydrogen make the largest impact for reaching zero emissions? Will that be in the maritime sector? How about rail and off-road? Buses? Trucks? Well, we're seeing buses and truck technology for sure. We've talked about it in the maritime sector. How about you? Where do you think we're going to be able to make the biggest impact for hydrogen?
You know, it's interesting. That's a tough question because I do think over-the-road trucking, as we really expand that, is a lot of fuel use. But boy, when you get into the marine and the rail sector, there's a lot of fuel there. So that can also be a huge impact.
That's right. Well, Alex, what are folks saying? All right. This is great. 53% say trucks, I would say, followed by the maritime sector by 34%, with buses following right behind that at 33%. And then we're showing about an 8% in rail and off-road, though I think when we talk to Tim, we'll learn a little bit more about what we're seeing there. That's great. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. And we will hear some more. And let's get into the news now really quick, just summing up what we've seen around clean transportation over this past week. Some exciting news. I think those of us who have been tracking what Hyundai has been doing in fuel cell technology are excited to have heard this week that they plan to bring their technology to the United States by 2022. As you know, that they're doing a 1,600 truck pilot in Switzerland, but they plan to bring those vehicles to the United States and possibly a California pilot project in 2021. That's their Xcient fuel cell trucks. Tesla has also got some big news this week. They've secured a large order from Walmart. This is interesting. It's 130 trucks for Walmart in Canada. Now, last week, Walmart did announce that they are going on a very aggressive move to get to full zero emissions across their entire fleet by 2040. This is one of the steps. And interestingly, last week, Tesla at its battery day also announced they're working on a brand new battery architecture and technology that could actually potentially double the range that they're seeing in some of their batteries. So some exciting news there. Knight Swift, which is really one of the biggest companies, combined companies in truck shipping, has announced that they are going to be cutting their climate emissions by 50% by 2035. That's a really big target for a truck shipping company. They say that they will include battery electric and fuel cell electric trucks as part of that strategy. And one of the first trucks they'll be testing is the Daimler e-Cascadia. Proterra has launched a Gen 5 transit bus. Now think about that. We're into our 5th generation of technology with Proterra. Very exciting. This ZX5 electric bus actually will still get really good range, and they're projecting as much as 329 miles of range, but they're also saying it will have more horsepower, more gradability, and it's also going to be lighter weight because of changes in platform and suspension. Another interesting development this week, Amply Power, an interesting company in the charging as a service world, is actually formed a 20-year contract with Anaheim Transportation Network for 46 of their buses. So what this does essentially is allows Anaheim to pay Amply for infrastructure, for charging, and for fuel over 20 years. And they think they'll make back a lot of money out of paying this guaranteed. In fact, there's even a guaranteed savings built into that agreement. So this could be a really interesting example of a new way to build out infrastructure. Finally, Fuel Cell Energy is going to be distributing distributed energy fuel cells in Connecticut. Now, this is also really interesting as part of a way to make sure that they have a sustainable grid that is able to respond to all different kinds of conditions and pull in as much renewable energy as possible. They're going to be deploying fuel cells throughout their system to make sure that there is adequate power throughout the whole transmission part of their network. Really interesting way to blend those technologies. And I think that last story in particular highlights the value of these integrated systems and complementary systems we're looking at with electricity and hydrogen fuel cells. It's something CALSTART believes very strongly in, and that is these things are not battling each other's battery electric and fuel cell electric. They are part of the complementary system we need going forward. And I think that's a fitting setup for our guests today, Alicia.
Thank you, Bill. I couldn't be more thrilled to introduce our first guest today, who's been just a wonderful partner to CALSTART. Certainly, we've been promoting alternative fuel corridors, Trillium has been a really important partner at being at the table on the discussion on what we need to do to build out our infrastructure. And I was also pleased to hear that Kim Okafor with Trillium, who has been recently placed on the board for the California Hydrogen Business Council. Kim, we're so excited to have you on our program today. It's been a great opportunity working with you, and you're just a pleasure to work with. So starting our conversation today, and as Bill nicely teed off in terms of the complementary aspects of looking at both electric charging and hydrogen refueling, tell us a little bit why it's important for Trillium to be supporting and promoting both of those fuel options as we're looking at medium and heavy duty applications.
Yeah, the real reason for that is because, so Trillium is a part of the Love's family of companies. So Love's Truck Stops and Love's Travel Stops, we have over 530 locations across the country. And the primary customer for those locations are heavy duty trucking customers, over the road, long haul customers. And whereas Trillium's primary customer is municipalities, government agencies, refuse trucks, so kind of return to base type operations. So the real reason of why we're a part of both technologies is because depending on what your duty cycle is for your operations, it may make sense for you to use battery electric or to use fuel cell. And we can provide a solution for either of those because our customers will be using both technologies. So really being smart about both is what positions us well to continue to be an asset for our customers.
So, let's maybe dig down into that a little bit, Kim. I think hydrogen is increasingly being looked at a variety of applications and duty cycles, particularly the heavier or more extreme duty cycles, or where you need to actually refuel faster. Now, you're part of the California Hydrogen Business Council sector work that's looking at ports and heavy duty. What duty cycles do you see hydrogen making the largest impact in when you get into payback and emissions reductions?
It really comes down to in my opinion, if I had a crystal ball or if I had to announce it today, I really think that it would be the long haul, over the road type customers, those customers that typically come to a Love's truck stops. Those are the customers that would be leaning more towards hydrogen fuel cell.
Kim, that's great. And thank you so much for your good responses there. Also, let's talk about benefits that we see with hydrogen refueling. One of the benefits most may say is that you get faster refueling with hydrogen. Maybe you can speak to some of the benefits that you see with hydrogen as an application.
I think the largest one is that faster refueling. No matter what your duty cycle is, if you don't have the opportunity or you don't have the availability to be able to charge for several hours at a time, it doesn't make sense for you to go to battery electric. Now, if you do have that opportunity, then you have some options that you can choose from. The second thing that you would think about is what type of range are you looking at for your operations? If you're looking at 100-mile range, maybe you have the option between either battery electric or hydrogen fuel cell. But if you're talking long haul, over the road trucking, with the technology that's available today, hydrogen fuel cell is what makes the most sense for that application. So I think the second biggest advantage that hydrogen fuel cell has over battery electric is the longer range. You're looking at about 300 miles of range. And if you go to the California Hydrogen Business Council website, we just published a fact sheet that both myself and Tim Sasseen worked very hard on. So if you have any other questions about range or infrastructure or efficiencies, that'll be a good resource for you.
Kim, that's great. And we want to make sure that we share out that resource. You all did a really great job with that fact sheet. And thanks for bringing that up. That's such a great resource for folks to go to. Well, with your good connection there with Tim, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring Tim Sasseen into our conversation. He is the Market Development Manager for Ballard Power Systems. Tim, so great to have you. And really, I have appreciated the opportunity to talk to you a lot about the theories of change with hydrogen and where we really see the technology going and where we see the largest potential. And I really have learned so much from you and really appreciate you tremendously. So thanks for joining us today for this program. Would love to throw the same question to you in terms of where do you see the benefits for hydrogen? And I know that you are working on a number of different projects, so you could probably share various perspectives in terms of where you see benefits for hydrogen across the medium and heavy duty sector.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Alicia. And thank you, Bill. I love the program and really happy to be here today. You have to think about energy really about energy storage and energy consumption. It's about density and storage. Hydrogen's really best when you need to pack in a lot of energy, such as for long distance trucks, as we've talked about, or you need vehicles in continuous operation when you don't have that time for recharging, or when you need to store it and move it, such as when you need to harvest energy from renewable sources and move it into very dense urban areas. Hydrogen offers a lot of different options for that. We see electrolysis from renewables really dominating transportation uses, but there's been a lot of attention lately on reducing waste streams. And one exciting area is pyrolysis, where you take things like waste plastic, which now we have concerns about recyclability with, and you turn them into usable hydrogen for energy and carbon that you can stick back into the ground. So there's really a multitude of benefits and a multitude of sectors that benefit from this, not just the end users with the vehicles and vessels that benefit from it, but also across the value chain.
I think that's such a good point, and production of hydrogen is one of the key issues, and we'll return to this, but just getting to the technology on fuel cell, Ballard has really been on the leading edge of this since the company formed, really been acknowledged as a leader. What do you see as the most dramatic recent technology advancements that you've seen in the hydrogen fuel cell side of things that allow fuel cells to do things that maybe we hadn't been considering just a few years ago?
Sure. Yeah. Really, it's been 4 decades of hard work. It's been gradual incremental improvements in platinum loading and recyclability and critical materials, project by project, getting better and better. And what we've achieved is bringing down those costs, bringing up that performance and reliability to meet market expectations. What's really made a most dramatic difference is really the emergence of low-cost batteries. It's given confidence to policymakers to really invest in zero-emission technologies, things that are available right now. And that makes available the kind of markets that we need access to. All of these improvements that we've made over time have been technology improvements. Now we're on the cusp of making manufacturing improvements. And this is where real cost reduction happens, when you get into continuous manufacturing. You know, those of you who may have tuned into Tesla's Battery Day or our Investor Day, we talked about this a lot. You know, as you get to these very high volume production processes, you come down orders in magnitude of cost. And we're really excited about that. And that translates over to other adjacent technologies like electrolysis, right? And fuel production. So once we get electrolysis deployed at a regional scale, we start to see 100% carbon-free hydrogen prices plummet. And that's when you get radical transformation of both mobility and power generation. And it's going to be not a minute too soon.
Tim, that's excellent. And just real quick, before we move on to bringing Mika into our conversation, so we've been seeing hydrogen move into some really great sectors. Certainly we're seeing it in the transit area. We're now seeing it in trucks. We're seeing the potential in rail. Where do you see the next commercial transportation technology for hydrogen? What's coming next?
Yeah, it's true that forklifts have been fantastically successful as commercial offerings, and fuel cell buses are there too. They're fully commercialized. And we've had a tremendous level of interest in the rail sector. We've got several projects going on in Europe, some emerging here in the US, and this sector has really high power and energy demands that are beyond the reach of what batteries can do today. And it's expensive to do these things by wired or catenary approaches. And rail offers the kind of packaging and use profiles that are really perfect for fuel cells today. It's really an engineering exercise and a matter of identifying the best first demonstration projects, which are already underway. And California has been very progressive in that, and we're seeing that over in South and North Carolina and in various other areas too. We get a lot of interest in the marine sector. This is a challenging area. We've got 5 projects going on in Europe where they have a lot more maritime mobility in ferries and in riverboats. And here in the US, particularly at the ports, we're looking at very large vessels. So there are bigger challenges here around how do you move around the fuel and how do you get up to those power levels, but it's evolving very fast. So marine applications will be very rapidly evolving, and distributed generation, you know, the kind of energy storage that you can do for long duration storage when you talk about days or weeks of storage and things like salt cavern, geological storage. There's a lot of opportunity there to shore up the kind of renewables that we need for a zero emissions future.
That's right, Tim. Well, gosh, aren't we lucky to have you as an expert on our program today to talk about all this. And it was really exciting too. Also, Tim, last week, Bill had announced and shared during our industry news segment, aviation for hydrogen. That's really exciting. So really great to hear about where we're seeing hydrogen going and really looking forward to seeing its advancements. What I'd like to do is now bring in Mika Miyasato, who's a senior transportation planner with the AC Transit, who not only is deploying battery electric charging bus technologies, but also hydrogen fuel cell technology. Mika, we're so excited to have you on our program and really looking forward to have a end user perspective as a part of this conversation. Tell us a little bit about the makeup of your fleet and why are you balancing your fleet with both fuel technologies?
Thank you, Bill and Alicia, for inviting me today. So just to give you a quick context, AC Transit currently operates 640 buses serving 13 cities in adjacent unincorporated areas, Alameda and Contra Costa counties in San Francisco Bay Area. Pre-COVID, we provided 53 million riders a year. That translating to 175,000 riders each weekday and 21 million annual service miles. So in terms of what we have today, we have 22 hydrogen fuel cell buses that consist of 40-foot new flyers, 11 40-foot Van-Hool buses, 160-foot new flyer buses, and we also have 5 40-foot battery electric buses from New Flyers. In terms of what's coming ahead, we have 2 40-foot Gillig battery electric buses on order, which are arriving soon in next few months. We also have another 20 hydrogen fuel cell and 20 battery electric buses in the process of procuring with an estimated delivery in 2022.
Well, Mika, let's bring in all of our panelists on this, but I'd like to ask you first, and then we'll talk to Kim and Tim. You know, there's been, and as I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of false choices. We thought battery versus fuel cell. We think it's battery and fuel cell. From an end user's perspective, where do you see the role of the two technologies? How would you use them in your fleet and energy mix?
Yes. So in 2019, AC Transit conducted a zero emission bus study to assess current state of zero emission technology and develop cost estimate for full fleet transition to zero emission bus by 2040. And the study recommended continuing with both zero emission technologies. And subsequently, we developed a zero emission bus rollout plan, which was adopted by our board in June of this year. So as you know, zero emission bus technology are rapidly changing. And while the technology is proven in many pilot deployments, zero emission bus can't easily replace diesel or CNG technology on a large scale deployment yet. So having both zero emission bus technology allows us to fully assess which technology can best meet the operational range requirements while being financially efficient and sustainable. So we are currently conducting the side-by-side evaluation of zero-emission bus technologies in the same environment and compare that to conventional fleets. This evaluation is AC Transit gift to the industry. We'll assess and compare capital costs and annual operations and maintenance costs of the various bus and infrastructure technologies, as well as the performance and reliability. We expect to have the first report released in February 2021. So at this point, you know, with the strengths and weakness of each zero emission bus technology, we believe having both technologies are best path forward for AC Transit.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've talked to some transit agencies who are looking just from a resiliency standpoint that it could be valuable. Kim, let me ask you, what's your view on the value of this complementary system? Because you are supporting both fueling types.
Yeah, I really think it comes down to, now the first thing I'll say is something that our CEO always says, which is we just serve our customer. So we're not here to determine which fuel is going to win over the other. It's whatever our customer needs, that's what we want to provide them, whether it be from an over-the-road service or a backlot type of fueling station. At the end of the day, it comes down to what works best for your operations. So I know there are many transit agencies, if you look at their rollout plans, they're looking at both battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell. And there are a lot of reasons why you would mix that up, right? So it comes down to redundancy. It comes down to having a number of different options. It comes down to some of these routes can take a shorter range. Others can take a longer range. Maybe we don't have enough real estate to put chargers all over our depot. Maybe we don't have enough real estate to put the hydrogen fueling infrastructure in one section of our depot. So it really comes down to what works best for your operations and choosing the fuel that works best there. But I agree with you. It's not battery versus hydrogen fuel cell. It's both and.
Great. And Tim, we want to get into some questions that our attendees are raising on fuel costs, which we'll get to in a second. But just a real quick comment from you just on that kind of dual path, parallel path.
It's such an important question, Bill. I mean, batteries and hydrogen are as complementary as wind and solar. You know, like solar, batteries are very simple but limited in time. Like wind, hydrogen has fuel cells have more components, but they're more time flexible. And wind power had a really tough time in its infancy competing for the same funding as solar. And there were advocates of solar that were actually fighting against wind power. And eventually we found that they were both highly complementary, and we can't afford to go down that path again. The stakes are too high and time is too precious to correct our energy system. So having those kind of complementary technologies really help us to achieve that full decarbonization that we all need.
Thank you so much, and great responses from each of you. So now getting to costs, which is one of the bigger barriers for hydrogen, especially as we look at fuel production and distribution costs. Those are certainly key issues. From each of your perspectives, what do you think it's going to take to see wider adoption of hydrogen technology in the commercial transportation industry? Maybe I'm starting off with Tim, and then we'll go to Kim, and then we'll go to Mika.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from our perspective for vehicles, we're pretty much there. It's mostly an engineering exercise and a matter of scaling up production. The one action that can really transform hydrogen to be a dominant source, and let me be really specific, is to have the first installation of wind and solar production from electrolysis at 30 tons per day in 2 locations, one in Northern California, one in Southern California. That's it. At that point, commercial forces take over, and there's going to be a vast array of applications. Batteries serve a vast array of light duty and low capacity applications. There's a lot of those, and hydrogen and fuel cell engines will take care of all the hard stuff. We're ready.
Great, thanks, Tim. All right, what say you, Kim?
Yeah, I think it comes down to typical business practices, economies of scale. So once you get more of these things in the ground, the infrastructure and the equipment costs for these, for the infrastructure that you need for the fueling stations, that will come down, right? So if you think about the CNG industry in the early years, a station, a typical, size station was much more expensive than it is today. So it takes time, it takes a number of installations, and it does take a push of the industry, right? So in the beginning years, you are going to need grant funding, or you're going to have to think about inventive ways to be able to finance your stations. But over time, it will be that because of the economies of scale, that this infrastructure, the price will come down, and then that price per kilogram in alignment with all of that will come down as well. So just like Tim was saying, that's already happened in the light duty space for hydrogen. That will happen in the heavy duty space as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Kim. All right, well, how about from an end user perspective, Mika, what do you think it will take to move the hydrogen industry forward?
Thank you. As an owner operator of transit agency, we have a lot of struggle in, dealing with the day-to-day operations as well as infrastructure side. So the first, infrastructure support for hydrogen would go a long way in supporting wider adoption. So what many electric utility companies offer infrastructure incentive because it is their own interest to court major energy users like transit agencies. In general, hydrogen suppliers don't provide such infrastructure support, so the cost to get the infrastructure up and running becomes a barrier to entry for many transit agencies. The second policy that would encourage the production of clean hydrogen would be beneficial to adoption of fuel cell technology, as it would bring down fueling costs. We need a cost per kilogram to be at $5 and operation and maintenance costs for fueling infrastructure to reduce significantly. So this $5 level is where we would be matching the existing CNG or the diesel cost of maintenance and operations level. So otherwise, the fuel cell technology is not affordable and doesn't pencil out in the annual operating budget. And the last but not least, we're excited about the advanced clean truck and advanced clean fuel rules. And that would likely to bring beneficial impact to the adoption of hydrogen fuel cells, with manufacturers ramping up production and hydrogen components for heavy duty trucks. It would most likely drive down price of fuel cell buses as they can utilize the same or similar components for our buses.
Hey, Mika, thank you so much. And thanks to our panel. We're going to have to end it there, but this was like a graduate session on hydrogen and fuel cells. Thank you very much to Kim Okafor of Trillium Loves, Tim Sasseen of Ballard, and Mika Miyasato of AC Transit. I think, great discussions about the fact that, we have so much constrained renewable energy. And if we can figure out a way to turn that into hydrogen rather than just turning it off or wasting it, there's some real production cost capabilities there that Tim raised that I think would be powerful. And then refueling as a service may be one of the ways we need to start looking. We saw an example of that today for electricity. What could we be doing with hydrogen? So really exciting times ahead, Alicia.
That's right. Thank you, everyone. You've been wonderful. So I believe, Bill, we have a few important events that we want to make sure that we highlight and we want to draw everyone's attention to. We've been talking a lot about our HTUF program, something that we're really proud of and really has been moving our commercial sector forward in some meaningful way. We are having our 20th anniversary celebration and vehicle electrification industry day on October 20th. You see the link there. Please make sure to join us for that. That will be a really great program, followed by a webinar that we'll be having on October 27th for the Advanced Clean Trucks implementation with California Senator Lena Gonzalez and with the California Trucking Association, Chris Shimoda. So please make sure to join us for that program. And then lastly, we are going to be having CalStart's annual meeting on both November the 17th and November the 18th. Of course, we always want to bring the latest in terms of where we see the industry going. So please make sure that you join us for that as well.
Great, Alicia. Well, sadly, as always, that brings us to the end of our CCTU for this week. We've run out of time, but remember, we post each week's edition to our website. Check it out and refer or tweet others to it at CalSTART/CCT update. Next week, we're going to have an update on activities in the Northeast, including incentives, outcomes from Climate Week, and really a look at the next step on actions from the 15 states who committed to achieving 30% zero emissions by 2030. So join us for that. As always, best to you on your work to drive action and change in clean transportation. Together, we are changing transportation and the world for good. For Alicia Gilday and our whole clean transportation team here at CalSTART, I'm Bill Van Amberg. Again, be safe, take care of yourself and others, and stay connected. Make Friday your CCTU day. We'll be right here next week looking for you. Until then, goodbye.